5 men entered the asylum ruins for answers. One by one, they learned the past remembers who forgets. Stay till the twist. The gates to Warden Hill Asylum had rusted open like a wound refusing to heal. Garrett stood staring at the iron maw, the winter light casting long shadows behind the rest of the group. The town council had declared the grounds condemned since 1974. That didn't stop them. Curiosity rarely obeyed caution, especially for men like them, driven, guilt-soaked, and desperate to forget. They'd all agreed to meet here. No one had to say why. There was Dean, stoic and skeptical, his army boots crunching gravel like dry bones. Mason, the youngest, twitchy and wide-eyed, recording everything on his camcorder for what he called a psychological investigation. There was Harold, quiet as always, hiding behind thick glasses and years of things unsaid. Lastly, Theo, the one who suggested this. Theo had found something, he claimed. Something in his late uncle's belongings. An old patient ledger from Warden Hill, dated 1957. 5 names circled. One of them was his uncle's. "We don't talk about what we saw until it's over," Theo had said, standing before the gate. "We walk in together. We walk out the same." But no one walks out of Warden Hill the same. Inside, the air clung to the lungs like wet cotton. Cold seeped into bone. Paint peeled from walls like dead skin. Graffiti danced over what remained of the wallpaper. Smears of red, symbols twisted like they'd been carved by a madman. The floor creaked beneath them, warped and broken in places. Mason raised his camera. "This is it, boys. Proof of the unknown." Dean scoffed. "Or tetanus." The entrance hall stretched into darkness. The once grand chandelier, now a dangling, rusted skeleton. Light from their flashlights swung wildly, illuminating pieces of the past. Wheelchairs with missing wheels, beds with restraints hanging limp, an overturned gurney. "You all know the story," Theo whispered. 53 patients vanished overnight. No bodies, no staff, just gone. Whole place sealed after that. Garrett said nothing. He remembered the story. More than that, he remembered the nightmares. Not from childhood, from last week. Every night since Theo showed him the ledger. They made their way to the East Wing, where the records claimed the 5 circled names had shared a ward. Room 312. Mason's camera whirred softly. Room 312, the ghost ward, perfect for the doc. "Doc?" Harold asked. "My YouTube alias?" Mason replied, grinning. "Doc Mines." Theo rolled his eyes. "Can we focus?" Room 312 loomed like a tumor at the end of the hallway. Its door hung askew, half rotten. Dean pushed it open with the toe of his boot. Inside, the air was wrong. The room was too still, like sound itself had been bled out. 5 beds, evenly spaced. Each had a number above the headboard. The walls bore etchings, dozens, maybe hundreds, each one scratched in the same jagged hand. "They match," Harold whispered, tracing a symbol with his finger. "Every one is the same." "They're not graffiti," Garrett said, voice low. "They're carvings." Dean moved to the far bed. The mattress was rotted, but on the wall above it were 6 symbols drawn in dark red. He ran a finger over the nearest and frowned. "Still wet," he muttered. Theo pulled the ledger from his bag, flipping pages. "Here. This was bed 4. Name, Edgar Flint. Diagnosis, chronic hallucinatory psychosis. Claimed voices spoke through walls." Garrett stared at the etchings. What if they did? Harold turned sharply. "Don't start." But Garrett wasn't joking. The symbols pulsed in his vision. He didn't blink. Couldn't. They called to him. Not with sound, but with memory. Unspoken fears. Something he'd buried so deep he'd believed it wasn't real. Then, the voice. Low, guttural. A whisper that dragged itself across his mind. You never left. He stumbled back. Mason caught him. You okay? I thought I heard. Dean turned. Footsteps. They all froze. Down the hall, someone, or something, was walking. Slow, deliberate steps. Heavy. But as they aimed their flashlights toward the sound, the hallway stretched, widened, twisted. What the? Mason began. And then the hallway was gone. The room was gone. They were gone. Garrett stood alone in room 312. But it wasn't abandoned now. The beds were full. 5 men lay there staring at the ceiling, motionless. Garrett recognized them: Mason, Dean, Harold, Theo, and himself. But younger, pale, dressed in hospital gowns. He tried to speak, scream, move. Nothing. He blinked, and it changed again. Now he was in a padded room, alone, except for the mirror on the wall. He approached it slowly. The reflection wasn't his. It was Edgar Flint. Edgar smiled. They never let me leave, he said. And now you remember why. Garrett backed away. The mirror rippled. Behind the glass he saw memories. Or were they dreams? A small boy screaming behind a wall. A needle. A locked door. A name tag. Dr. Garrett Linwood. No, Garrett whispered. That wasn't me. Edgar laughed. A wheezing, broken sound. But it was. You were one of them. You helped. You watched. The mirror shattered, and Garrett remembered. The other 4 were elsewhere in the asylum now, separated by their own pasts, their own truths. Dean found himself in the medical wing. It looked cleaner than before, as if time had rewound. Nurses bustled past, but none looked at him. He walked down the corridor until he saw himself, or someone wearing his face, in a white coat, holding a clipboard, smiling. A young man sat in a chair before him, wrists restrained. Name? The dean in white asked. The patient trembled. Dean Halvers. Dean's stomach dropped. He looked down. His hands were trembling. Needles. Screams. The man in white grinned wider. You volunteered for this, he said, looking up at Dean through the mirror. Dean screamed. Elsewhere, Mason found the basement. The camcorder had long since stopped working. The red light blinked, dead. He followed the whispers. Dozens of them, children, men, all calling him. Tell our story, they begged. He found tapes, hundreds, shelves lined with VHS recordings, labeled with names. He pulled one. Mason Graves, Trial 3. He slid it into a VCR, static, then screaming, then his face, mouth pried open, eyes bloodshot. A voice behind the camera asked, Do you still believe in stories, Mr. Graves? He dropped the remote, turned. The room was full of cameras now, all aimed at him, recording, judging. I didn't know, he sobbed. I didn't know they were real. But the asylum knew, always did. Harold was in the archives. Dust choked every breath. Papers fluttered. Files spilled across the floor. He saw them, his reports, signed in his hand. Subject 5. No further signs of cognitive resistance. Memory erasure successful. Reassignment to staff complete. He read them all. Then he found the photo. 5 men in white coats. Theo, Garrett, Dean, Mason, himself. Not patients, staff. The experiment had worked, but memory erodes, cracks, returns. A whisper behind him. You filed the reports. You watched them scream. Theo was in the chapel, only it wasn't abandoned. Candles flickered. Blood pooled beneath the altar. He approached slowly. A figure waited in the pew. His uncle. Why did you bring them here? The old man asked. Theo trembled. To remember. To fix it. You were the first, the man said. You gave the order. You designed the test. You killed your own name to forget what you did. Theo dropped to his knees. But you never forget. Not in Wardenhill. That's the price. Memory is blood here, and you owe so much. The walls screamed. Room 312 bled. They awoke together, in their beds. The carvings above them now glowed. They were back where they started, but nothing was the same. "Do you remember?" Theo asked. No one answered. They didn't need to. The air buzzed with memory. Warden Hill didn't house the insane. It made them. A test facility. For cognitive reconditioning. For removing guilt, identity, past. They'd volunteered, designed it, built it. But they made a mistake. The minds they tampered with didn't forget. They remembered. And they became the walls, the voices, the screams. Now the five stood once more in room 312. "I know the way out," Garrett said. They followed. Through the corridors, down past the archives, beyond the basement, to the door marked Burn Ward. But it wasn't fire they'd feared. It was revelation. Inside, the truth waited. 5 chairs, 5 screens. Each showed their pasts, not in flashes, but in full. Each sin, each experiment, each erasure. "You can leave," said the voice from the speakers. "But you must choose, remember, or remain." Dean stepped forward. "I remember, and I'll carry it." The door opened. He walked through. Light consumed him. Then Mason stepped forward. "Me too." Then Harold. Then Garrett. Theo hesitated. His uncle appeared beside him. "It won't forgive you." Theo looked at his hands. "I know, but maybe remembering is the only forgiveness we get." He stepped through, and the door shut. The asylum groaned. Dust settled. The halls fell silent. Later that year, the town demolished Warden Hill, or thought they did. But sometimes, on cold nights, 5 figures are seen walking the ruins, searching, watching. And if you listen closely, you'll hear the whispers. "You were here. You were one of us." Because Warden Hill never forgets. And now, neither do they.